And joining me now live from Montreux in Switzerland, he is financial and political analyst Angelo Giuliano. Mr. Giuliano, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, to begin, Russia is now facing a host of different sanctions aimed at crippling its financial system and the economy. So what implications is Russia immediately facing as a result of these American and European sanctions?
Well, Russia was all along very prepared for those sanctions. Russia had 8 years to prepare for this. I think a lot of people underestimate Putin. What Putin has done since 2014, because keep in mind that the war didn't start yesterday. It started in 2014 with the coup, the illegal coup, where they took out Zelensky, a pro-US, pro-leaning pro-Russia government. So what Putin did was to make sure that the economy of Russia would be self-reliant. So for 8 years, he paid back his debt, and he has reserves of $650 million US. So he's been ready all along. I think people do underestimate Russia. And when it comes to the SWIFT, I think it's the EU and the US need to be extremely careful. The US hegemony and US imperialism is actually surviving because of the US dollar hegemony. By cutting off Russia, they are going to undermine the US dollar. So you have a lot of countries that are actually going to turn into to other currencies and not the dollar. So this privilege of having a free lunch for the US might stop soon. And what will happen next? It's going to hurt extremely Europe and the US. It's going to be very simple. Energy prices going up, the dollar falling, hyperinflation. So is it hurting Russia? No. Russia has a long time ago shifted towards Asia. It was ready for that, so it comes at no surprise. Now it's important to look at who are the winners here. The winners is the US. It's a system of divide and control. What the US wanted to do here in Ukraine was to have Russia to decouple from Europe, because we're entering into a new phase of a multipolar world, and there's going to be just two blocks. It's going to be bipolar. You have Russia and China on one side, and you have the EU and the US. So they need, in order to further go into cold, hot war, they need to decouple first. So they started with China, and now they're furthering this project with Russia. So it's important to look at the big picture. What is behind this? There's nothing to do with the freedom and democracy. And keep in mind that a lot of people, they forget that what is happening these days, it's not a war that started. Actually, what Putin is doing is stopping a war that lasted 8 years and that killed 14,000 civilians. So I'm asking all those people that are going in the streets right now as being so-called pacifists, where were you the last 8 years when they were doing a Russian ethnic genocide in Donbass, killing 14,000 people? The Western media were mute about this, mute. And it's important to look also about what is behind this, what is behind the power there in Ukraine. The coup in 2014 was backed by neo-Nazi forces, Azov battalion, the right sector. And so we have legalized those forces that actually right now armed forces. After 80 years, we have said, the Western world has said, never again. And we accepted that we have now in Europe neo-Nazi forces that are worshipping Hitler and Stepan Bandera, and we have accepted this.
What evidence do we have of that, though? Do we have actual evidence of that?
Oh, absolutely. They openly, they have the insignia, Nazi insignia, and they worship. You know, Stepan Bandera. He was in the Second World War. He was a neo-Nazi collaborator, and he has become the hero of the nation. He's basically he's the same as Lenin was to the USSR. So it's openly, and why is it? I mean, you just have to look at the UN. There was a vote at the UN which was against the glorification of racism and Nazism. And there were two countries in the world that voted against this law. Two countries, USA and Ukraine.
No, but I'd like to understand that perhaps, okay, so Russia wanted to clear the region of Donbass and perhaps Luhansk and, you know, for the Russian ethnic minority over there, perhaps, which is a majority over there. But why invade all of Ukraine? Why do they need to take over Kiev? And there's civilian casualties. There's so much more beyond that. What is the plan, to actually take over all of Ukraine? And why?
No, Putin was very clear. It was about demilitarization of Ukraine and denazification. I think the trigger that made Putin to decide to invade Ukraine was very simple. Once Zelensky started to talk about reviewing the agreement of Ukraine of not going into nuclear acquisition of nuclear power, that was the red line not to cross. Could you imagine Ukraine having nuclear weapon? And keeping in mind that Ukraine has the technology. So this was the red line. It was absolutely a nonsense. Also, when it comes to Zelensky, you need to keep in mind that my question is Zelensky working for Ukraine or is he working for the US? To my opinion, because the Ukraine democracy has been completely hijacked by Soros Foundation, by NED, it's no more democracy. Democracy requires, you need to have sovereignty before having democracy. So it's important for people to really study what happened in 2014. In 2014, there was a coup. There was Victoria Nuland, she said very clearly, we invested $5 billion into Ukraine's democracy. Is it a democracy when you have this meddling? Well, it's no different with the